Last Friday on July 4th, Trump signed OB3 into law, and that is the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And so we have in the final version that was published yesterday or today on Congress.gov, we got 870 pages of bill text. Now, for our purposes here, we're not going to go through all 870 pages. We're going to go through Section 7. The table of contents of Section 7 starts here on page 5. This is Title VII Finance. And everything starting with a 7 is basically somehow related to the tax world. And whether it is directly a tax implementation or tax change, or it's an indirect thing that affects tax, as you'll see a little bit later on, we're going to go through them. Now, we're not going to cover everything in this one short video. Here, we're just going to give an overview. And in subsequent videos, we'll go over the individual pieces in more detail. So here, let's just go through a relatively quick recap of what actually made it into the bill. So we've got Section 7001 references to Internal Revenue Code 1986, etc. And then it goes into providing permanent tax relief for middle-class family workers. Now, if you look here closely, you'll see extension, termination, extension, and so forth. And what this is making the 2017 Tax Reform, Tax Cut and Jobs Act pretty much permanent, or at least as permanent as we get in tax legislation, because about every 10 years we get a new tax bill. And then it goes on to Chapter 2, delivering on presidential priorities to provide new middle-class tax relief. This is the no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, car loan interest, that sort of thing. And then Chapter 3, establishing certainty and competitiveness for American job creators. This whole thing is all business tax related. Foreign tax credits, base erosion, business interest limitations, all that sort of stuff. Chapter 4, investing in American families, communities, and small businesses. So this is related to child tax credit, dependent care credits, that sort of thing. Tax credits for contributions of individuals to scholarship granting organizations. This is actually one of my favorite ones. And 529 accounts, and so on and on with small business, QSBS, charitable contributions, and more. Chapter 5 is all about getting rid of the Inflation Reduction Act. So all the clean vehicle credits for electric vehicles, fuel cells, all that sort of stuff, that's all going away and being phased out. Enhancement of American First energy policy. And this is to enhance energy exploration and development. Chapter 6, enhancing deduction and income tax credit guardrails and other reforms, which is getting into more details about how things are treated and how they're going to be checking out things, requiring social security numbers and things like that. Here we got subtitle B, health. A lot of this does not sound directly tax related as far as income taxes, but what it does relate to is how your tax money is spent on Medicaid and Medicare and that sort of. However, there is a section here, Chapter 3, health tax, which is on improving eligibility criteria for premium tax credit. This is your Obamacare stuff. You know how if you're on Obamacare, you have to file every year and you have to reconcile your premium tax credits that you received throughout the year that went to the insurance company versus what you actually spent and how much you actually made, and making sure that those are reconciled. So this is all addressing that sort of thing. And then there's a few other things that are somewhat related to tax policy, modification of limitation on public debt. I'm sure you've heard a lot about that on the news lately. And ending unemployment payments to jobless millionaires. So that's a fun one that we can dive into. And that is Title VII of the One Big Beautiful Bill. That in later videos, we'll go into the different components and get into the details, but that's the overview and that's where we're headed. And we're going to take all this information and then apply it to the tax situation on the ground in 2025.